Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million online rendezvous on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This is Sramana Mitra coming to you live from Menlo Park, California. 1 million by 1 million, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. And our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. In support of that mission, we do a lot of work through various different touch points. Social media is one of them, and we do a lot of live sessions. These are very strange times, but we are trying to maintain as much normalcy as possible. So in business, I personally find it terribly therapeutic to be able to have normal business conversations, feel like I'm being productive. And, for us, that is to work with entrepreneurs, listen to entrepreneurs, work with their issues, their challenges, and, try to find solutions to those. And that happens through positioning work, that happens through strategy work, that happens through financing introductions or customer introductions, whatever are the requirements of technology startups and technology-enabled services startups. That's our domain of normalcy. And that's what we are trying to maintain, hold on to really tightly in these difficult times. And our community of entrepreneurs are also trying to maintain that normalcy of being able to make progress and feel like they're getting somewhere. There is a tremendous slowdown, very understandably, right? There's a tremendous crisis, there's lockdown to deal with that crisis, and our lives have been completely upended. So, it's going to go on for a while. It's going to take definitely the month of April is under lockdown already. Most countries, most cities have announced that the month of April was going to be a lockdown situation. My estimation is that it's going to be all of May as well. So I'm mentally preparing myself for a 2-month lockdown. And I think that is what most geographies, most countries are going to end up with, except the ones that are further along, like maybe China, maybe South Korea, that is not in lockdown. So, I would say that we need to, from a business point of view, we need to still make progress. For 2 months, we're not going to sit there. We need to figure out how to make progress. And that's what I've, tried to shepherd our entrepreneurs in our community towards, and I've tried to add value. We have tried to add value in that process. So with that, let me start kind of on the agenda we have for today. We normally do questions and answers here. We get questions from many, many different touch points in social media and our live experiences that we do, our online roundtables that happen every week. So what I'm going to do is, as usual, pick up some of those questions and start answering those questions. And I encourage you to ask more questions. Go to the comments in whichever platform you're dialing from and ask more questions. Whatever questions are in your mind that I am qualified to answer, I will try my best to answer. Either after the video session, I will go and dialogue with you in public chat, or we'll pick up the questions, and if they warrant a longer answer, we'll do that next time. Now, if you are looking for feedback on your business strategy, the best place to look for that is our 1 million by 1 million free online roundtables. So go to the website 1mby1m.com and go to the free public roundtable tab, and you will see the schedule. Pretty much every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, we have a 90-minute free mentoring roundtable. So you're very welcome to bring your project there, and I will be happy to look at what is it that you are struggling with, and what what can be done, what I recommend, and I'll be very happy to do that for each one of you. All right, so let's go to questions. The first question is there a company in your portfolio that is doing well amidst the coronavirus pandemic? The answer is yes. Actually, companies in our portfolio, many of them, most of them, I would say, are trying to make some progress. Now, the earlier stage companies find it harder to, master the resources that would help them move forward. But here's a company that I'm going to discuss in today's session that we just featured in the 1M by 1M Incubation Radar 2020. It's called the Tuesday Company, based in Washington, D.C. You must know this. Digital-first supporter engagement tools are increasingly becoming a necessity for nonprofits, especially to engage younger supporters. Winner of the 1 million by 1 million Blackboard Social Goods Startup Challenge, the Tuesday Company has built a supporter engagement platform called Team to help nonprofits activate volunteers, grow membership, and raise money through the power of friend-to-friend outreach and digital organizing. The current state of pandemic has injected an acute urgency to its clients who have gone from seeing digital-first supporter engagement and Team as something they should implement to something they must implement now. As campaign veterans, CEO Michael Luciani and his co-founders, CTO Charlie Austin and CRO, Chief Revenue Officer Shola Farber, experienced gaps in progressive politics and advocacy. So that's their roots. They come from political campaigns background. To reach supporters, organizers rely on mass texts, emails, and ads that are scalable and affordable, but impersonal and generally ignored. Meanwhile, their volunteers make cold phone calls and knock on doors in a way that is authentic and personal, but slow, expensive, and narrow. For the Clinton campaign in 2016, Michael experimented with the tactics behind Team. And his county was the only one in Michigan that voted Democrat in 2016, by greater margins than in 2012. After that election, he co-founded the Tuesday Company and launched Team in 2017 with the aim to solve problems he saw as an organizer and build the tools he wished had existed. Isn't that a wonderful story? So when you face a problem in some context, some professional context that you are working in, and you identify that here's a problem, here's a solution, and you experiment with that problem, that solution, that is a great way to find ideas for new companies. And by the way, those of you who are listening and have in the back of your mind similar objectives of finding a problem to solve, finding a new company to build, you have a lot of time right now. Even if you're working from home, you have a lot of time. You don't have to commute. You don't have to fly here, there, everywhere to start, for your business meetings and so on and so forth. So in general, a lot of time has freed up in people's schedules, and it's a very good time for you to start thinking about what problems might you be facing or have you faced in your experience that might be the genesis of a new company. So if you have harbored desires to start a company, coronavirus will end at some point. So when it ends, you will have the opportunity to start companies again. And if you're really adventurous, you can put pieces together with which you can start the process, start the journey of starting a company now when you have time in your hand. So coming back to Tuesday Company and Team. Team is a platform that acts as a central hub for staffers to organize and activate their supporters. With Teams chat features, staffers build authentic and personal relationships with new supporters at scale and can prompt and track actions. So this is the concept, and the company actually has been used for 2,000 campaigns nationwide, from school boards to presidential candidates. Since 2019, Team expanded into the wider nonprofit and advocacy market, fueled by referrals from its campaign clients. And now it's pivoting more towards the nonprofit fundraising market. It currently has over 300,000 end users who have contacted 1.2 million people on behalf of organizations that they care about. So, very good engagement, very good adoption. The Tuesday Company is a winner of the 1 million by 1 million Blackboard Social Good Startup Challenge. And therefore, it now has a channel partnership that gives them an opportunity to access Blackboard's 35,000 nonprofit clients. That is the basis of the Blackboard 1 million by 1 million challenge. We are looking for companies that are social good startups that can, leverage the Blackboard channel. So that's kind of the summary of a company that is doing really well. And in terms of how well they're doing, their nonprofit revenue has gone from 20K in 2018 to 250K in 2019. It expects revenue to exceed 2 million in 2020. It currently has 40,000 of nonprofit monthly recurring revenue and 400K in new nonprofit annual recurring revenue in Q1 of 2020, and 850K new nonprofit annual recurring revenue in its sales pipeline. They actually saw a surge in leads, as nonprofits right now are in a dire state. I love concerts, music, dance, all of that, and the San Francisco Symphony, for instance, the San Francisco Ballet, and this is true about every city. They have all canceled their programs. Opera, all the museums have shut down. So I'm really concerned, how are these going to survive? And I'm a very frequent museum goer, very frequent concert goer. So I am really passionate about all these different nonprofits, culture organizations, and I hope they will find a way to leverage services like Tuesday Company, and we have other companies in our portfolio that could be helpful. And I hope they're going to make it through this challenge. Okay, we'll switch to another question. Just give me a moment to take a sip of coffee. So, a little bit more generic. What are some reasons why tech startups fail? Well, I'll give you 10 reasons, not one. In normal times, over 600,000 companies go out of business every year in the US alone. Infant entrepreneur mortality is a massive problem. Of course, we are in abnormal times right now. So what will happen when we come out of this period is a complete anomaly. So I'm right now talking only about normal times. We can talk about these abnormal times subsequently, but for the moment, let me address just the normal time situation. One of the key reasons entrepreneurs go out of business in normal times is they define success as funding. Success is not funding. Entrepreneurial success is customers, revenues, and profits. So in normal times, I advise entrepreneurs to not chase investors, but chase customers instead. And if you have customers and if you have validation, investors are much more willing to work with you than if you don't. So that is my normal time advice. Right now, in these abnormal times, I would even kind of amplify that message. It will be very difficult to raise funding in these times. We are introducing entrepreneurs to investors. And I'll tell you why my thinking is to introduce entrepreneurs to investors, because investors also have a lot of time. Getting mind share is easier right now. And in any process, in any investment process, there is a certain education involved. You have to educate your investors about what you're doing, how you're doing, what you're doing. And I do have investors in my network who are willing to go through that process. The deal may not close right away, but there is a sales cycle in the investment process, which you will have to go through no matter what. So let's start that process. If you have the goods, I'm not going to send you to investors if you don't have much likelihood of getting funding. If you have work to do, if you have pieces that you still have to put in place, I would rather work with you, in our roundtables and get you ready. But if you are ready, if you are quote unquote fundable by our estimate, we will introduce you to investors, and that's fine. But you have to not define success by funding. Right now, you have to figure out how to get to customers, which also is difficult at the moment. But in normal times, defining success equal to funding is suicidal, in my opinion. So that's my point number one. Point number two, entrepreneurs do not know the essential techniques of bootstrapping. I see that over and over again. One of the essential techniques of bootstrapping is bootstrapping with a paycheck. So if you have a job, hold on to that job. And there's a whole lot of learning that you have to do, a whole lot of validation that you have to do before you should quit your job. Don't quit your job randomly. Another essential technique of bootstrapping is bootstrapping using services. A lot of entrepreneurs have built their companies by using services. Bootstrapping by piggybacking is something that I've discussed in prior sessions, and I will keep discussing in ongoing sessions. These are just techniques of bootstrapping, and you have to learn these techniques, and you have to see which one is the right one for you. But bootstrapping techniques are essential to learn if you want to survive as a company and even get funded, because today's industry, today's startup ecosystem operates in the bootstrap first, raise money later mode. It does not fund concepts. When I was very young and we were at the beginning of the internet in 1994, I was 24 years old and I started my first company. This was an era when concepts used to get funded. The first wave of the dot-com bubble did see concepts getting funded. That's not true anymore. It hasn't been true for a long, long time. After the dot-com crash, that trend completely disappeared from the market. So unless you're a serial entrepreneur with huge track record that, people know what people think, investors think that you know what you're doing, you've made them money, don't expect concepts to be funded. My third point, why entrepreneurs go out of business, is they don't understand positioning. What is positioning? Positioning is finding out or figuring out a narrow base of customers that have really acute need for what you have to offer. Positioning is not to say that my product or my service applies to everybody and their mother. If you're thinking of catering to your mother, define what is the profile of your mother. What age group, what geography, what lifestyle, is it a working mother or a stay-at-home mother? All of those things need to be figured out. You really need to narrowly define what customer segment you're after. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you need to figure out what customer segment you're after. And that positioning work is something we do an enormous amount of in our program. I would say we are one of the best programs. If you have positioning challenges, this is something we specialize in. When I used to consult, after doing 3 startups as founder CEO, I consulted for almost a decade. Positioning is where I made most of my money. I'm very good at it, and it's a very complex thing. So it's something that is very poorly understood, and the accelerators don't understand it. The next point number 4, of why tech startups fail is they spend money on unimportant things and run out of cash, like expensive offices. And in fact, I like the fact that right now we are forced to be bare bones. We are forced to work from home. We are forced to, do virtually everything. We run a virtual company. We don't have offices. People work from home, and that's perfectly fine and incredibly productive. So, especially when you have very limited resources, extending your runway is really important. So these tricks of the trade, like working from home, doing virtual companies and stuff like that, hiring from Upwork, people out of the Philippines, or whatever ways you can save money. These are very good techniques, and that will give you lots of runway and lots of efficient way of operating that will save cash. So if you don't spend money on useless things, that's one of the ways of survival. And now you better figure that out really, really, solidly. And the counterpoint to that, or counterpart to that, is they hire too many people too soon without validating whether they have a business case or not. So it's the same thing. Don't hire too many people. Try to do things yourself until you have validation, and then figure out what you need to hire, whom you need to hire. And similarly, you shouldn't be building a product without validating. Don't write a bunch of code without figuring out what customers need, what pain point are you solving, what should be in the product. Without talking to customers, don't write a line of code. That's our philosophy in 1 million by 1 million. Another reason, and we talked about it right at the beginning, entrepreneurs fail is because they chase investors, not customers. It takes time to chase anybody. Whether you're chasing customers, you're chasing investors, you're chasing media to write stories about you, you're chasing partners, you're chasing anybody. It takes time. So instead of spending that time chasing investors, you should spend that time chasing customers. Better spend time. Networking. People say, oh, I'm networking aggressively. Networking with whom? Networking also takes time. You should be networking in a very focused way. Don't spend all your time going to every single conference under the sun and every single meetup, and do it with focus. Figure out where people whom you need to network with hang out, or influencers whom you need to network with hang out. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for introductions to investors, and you're looking for an influencer who can introduce you, you may want to come and network with me. That's a very focused networking, because that's something I do. But if you can't do that randomly, you have to do that very focused. You have to figure out who is going to serve the purpose that you are networking with. Going and shooting the breeze with, let's say you are a certain kind of entrepreneur. Let's say you're an entrepreneur in high tech. Going and shooting the breeze with an entrepreneur who is starting a restaurant is not going to help you much. The problems are different. The context is different. The network is different. So whatever time you budget for networking, you should spend that time on people who can actually do something for you. The point number 9 is entrepreneurs talk to investors too soon and blow important cartridges. This is very, very important. So now let's say you have decided that you want me to introduce you to investors. And when I look at whom to introduce you to, I find out that you've already gone and talked to all these investors randomly, and they've all turned you down because you went to them too early. You have blown all the cartridges. Getting second, third meetings with investors is incredibly difficult. So if you go too soon, you have done yourself a tremendous disservice. And then the last point I will make here is Entrepreneurs go out of business because they don't focus on the business model and path to monetization. I was coaching an entrepreneur at our private roundtable for our premium members only yesterday evening, actually. So it's very fresh in my memory. This company has 500,000 users, unique users a month, and it's a B2B company mostly. And they're not even collecting the email addresses of people who are using their software. Well, that's not a good way to run a business, because you need to turn these free users into paying users, and you need to be able to go through a business process to do that. If you don't know who they are, how are you going to monetize them? And why are you catering to free users if you're never going to monetize them? It's a useless way to run a business. So I coached him very hard on how to move from that position and into a position where the revenue is tied to the free users. The free users use your product for a little while, get a feel for it, get value, and then switch to paying users. So those are my points about why entrepreneurs fail and what you need to do to make sure that you do not repeat those mistakes. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about a few questions that are coronavirus related. So here's a question: how will the emerging threats of the coronavirus have a major impact on the economy? Maureen, I just skipped through one of the questions. So if you could go to question number 4, which is how will the emerging threat of the coronavirus have a major impact on the economy, that would be great. Because we are 10 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes away from closing the session. So there is already a recession triggered by lockdowns that impact 2 billion people. The question is, how much worse will it get? Are we going to have a depression? The vaccines seem to be 12 to 18 months away, which means the next 12 months, next 12, 18 months look very tricky. The key question being investigated right now is the potential for chloroquine to treat severe cases of the virus in the right dosage. Overdosing is causing deaths in people trying to prematurely self-medicate based on speculative and non-scientific recommendations by the American president. However, chloroquine is a very promising situation. There are lots of anecdotal evidence at this point that chloroquine is working. And if chloroquine works, and there's enough test kits in the market, there's also lots of innovation in test kits. Test kit after test kit are coming into the market, and they're compressing the time it takes for the test kits to generate results. We started with like 7 days before results are available to now 5 minutes before results are available. Abbott has a 5-minute test kit that I think just got provisional approval from the government yesterday. So the combination of a drug that can deal with severe cases and enough test kits available in the market, hopefully by April, then the pandemic actually enters a somewhat more manageable phase. And we may be done with the carnage within a couple of months. Of course, there's like lots of ifs and mays and buts in this. So, and one of the ifs, for example, I know we have a very large international audience here. One of the ifs that I track closely because I'm from there is India. What is going to happen in India? There's, all kinds of forecasts out there. People are saying that the best case is 150 million people are going to get infected in India. The worst case is 240 million people will get infected in India. Some percentage of these are going to be severe cases. Can we get enough chloroquine? Can we get enough test kits to deal with this kind of this scale of a pandemic? And similarly, India's population is 1.3 billion people. So these are numbers based on a 1.3 billion people population. Neighbors, Pakistan and Bangladesh, are also very large population. Pakistan is 200 million, 230 million people. Bangladesh is another 100 some million people. And Pakistan has not gone into a lockdown really. All the mosques are open and they're doing religious gathering, prayer meetings, and so on and so forth. And these are very bad ideas. India has gone into a lockdown, so India will be able to slow things down a little bit, not entirely, because India also has this slums and people live very close to one another. There's not fresh water, clean water. There are all kinds of issues. So my point is that this combination of testing and chloroquine is a best case scenario for countries that can get the supply of these drugs and these test kits and ventilators. That's another thing. In the severe cases, there's a ventilator shortage right now that is trying to be addressed. So bottom line is there are a lot of ifs and buts. But if all these medical science innovations and the manufacturing supply chain related to it can ramp up, then maybe we can get to something more manageable, and the next 2 months, next 4 months even, are going to be terribly tricky. But after that, we start entering a slightly more manageable phase. But if this doesn't work and if countries don't manage it well, we could be looking at 30% global unemployment and absolute economic devastation. So, lockdown is important, but lockdown means that economic devastation is happening. If we relax the lockdown, millions of people are going to die. So it's a very, very tricky balance that countries, governments are trying to achieve. And frankly, just talking about this makes me feel exhausted. So the people who are in the front lines of dealing with this, the nurses, the doctors, even the policymakers who are trying to figure all this out, it's really hard for them. So it's very sobering. It's very, very complicated. And then the timeline becomes even more complicated if we have a big surge in the fall. Viruses tend to act up in colder weather. So come October, November, December, next 2021, January, February, March, those 6 months could again be very tricky. So I think we are in a very, very, very tricky period for the moment. And it's going to inevitably have a major impact on the world economy. How bad is that going to be will depend on how bad this gets, how well we deal with the medical nuances of this, how badly or how well we deal with the supply chain related to the medical supplies needed to deal with it. So it's an unprecedented historic moment. So it's something that we're going to have to be very, very patient in dealing with. I'm going to go to another question, which is a little bit of a positive spin. I'm going to skip through a couple of questions. We'll deal with them next time because we are a bit short time-wise. The question is, what are some businesses thriving despite the coronavirus pandemic? So Maureen, if you could skip us through to this question. So yes, inevitably, there are profitable businesses. There are not profitable necessarily thriving businesses. They can be profitable, non-profitable. It doesn't matter, but they're thriving businesses nonetheless. One of them in the technology world that you must have experienced already is Zoom. We're doing Zoom calls, Zoom meetings all the time. Um, and related players, there are lots of players like that. Microsoft has Team. We do WebEx. We use WebEx for our in our normal workflow we do WebEx, but there are several video conferencing players and related players that are doing very well. There's a, you know, in any given year, there are a lot of trade shows and large conferences that happen in the technology world. And I'm sure many of you were scheduled to attend these, and many of you who work for companies who are exhibiting in them or hosting them, and some of our clients actually are hosting large conferences, they have to stop all that because large gatherings are no longer allowed. So there's a company called On24 that is also booming because of that. They're in normal life, they have a webcasting product that is already a virtual gathering, virtual seminar, webinar kind of product. They also have a virtual conference platform, a platform that manages virtual trade shows, virtual conferences, and that product is in very high demand from their customer base. Of course, online retail is booming right now. Amazon cannot keep up with the demand. And, in countries like India, the online grocery guys, Big Basket and so forth, are booming. And truthfully, their supply chains, their logistics, their delivery organizations are not equipped to deal with this kind of rapid scaling. Amazon is planning to hire, 100,000 or 150,000 people, which is very good news because there are so many people who need jobs right now. There's been tremendous unemployment, tremendous job losses, and there will be more job losses. I think there were 3.3 people in America who filed for unemployment, and that number is forecasted to go to 14 million in the next few months. So it's hallelujah that people are hiring. Some people are hiring. And then, of course, there's a lot of hoarding of basic supplies going on. So people who make toilet papers and people who make, hand sanitizers and so on are booming. Food, there's food shortage. People are hoarding food. So, those are all useful things. And I think, if you look at cultures, different cultures operate differently, right? Different countries operate differently. Where I live in Silicon Valley, the culture of cooking at home is actually not as prevalent. People go out to eat a lot. So being stuck at home 7 days a week, eating 3 meals a day at home without any option to go out to eat is very difficult for people. So I imagine, I haven't seen any numbers or analysis, people who are delivering prepared food, I'm sure, are doing very well. So some of the restaurants actually have turned themselves into food delivery services, including Michelin-starred restaurants who are generally very snobbish and have all kinds of blah, blah, blah. But right now, they're not allowed to operate. So the blah, blah, blah goes out of the window. They are delivering food. So all these are people who are catering to problems of the time. Businesses have to be flexible. Businesses have to be as creative and as nimble as possible to deal with the times. And there's a message in there for you and your business, whatever business you're working on. Try to apply creativity and figure out what people need that you have the capacity to provide with minor modification or major modification or whatever modifications that will help you keep going with what you need to do, keep making a buck, keep paying your people, keep meeting your numbers and so on and so forth, because life has to go on through all these troubled times, all these troubled waters. Life has to go on. And And there's no two ways about it. So the last question that I will take today before we close is, how can I get feedback from you on my venture? Yes, I am, as you know, probably, if you have been following my work, I am one of the most accessible people in the startup ecosystem. You can come and talk to me in any of our touch points. This is one of them. But the one where you really get to work with me, and that is also free, is our online mentoring roundtables that happen every week, every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So go to our website, go to 1mby1m.com, go to free public roundtables. And if you want to discuss your positioning, your financing strategy, any other aspect of building your company, I will be happy to work with you. These are safe working sessions. You don't need to be nervous. You don't need to be defensive. Just come and we'll work on your business. Up to 5 entrepreneurs who register to pitch will be able to present their businesses each session. And you will get straightforward feedback from me, advice on next steps, answers to questions from me, as well as I have guests that are CEOs and investors, and very often they stay and answer questions as well. So go and register, and I look forward to seeing you. Some of you maybe this week, as early as April 2nd, some April 9th, some April 16th, April 23rd, April 30th. But in any case, as long as we are well, we're not sick, or who knows, we could get sick. As long as we are well and physically capable, we will be there, and you can come and talk to us as much as you want to. Now, another thing you can do is go look at the self-assessment tool on our website. It's also free. It's a questionnaire that investors ask. These are the questions investors ask you. You would do well to ask yourselves these questions, because these are strategic planning questions. And if you can answer these questions, great. If you get stuck, you can do the 1M by 1M basic program, which is a curriculum only program. It's only $99 a month, and you have time right now, so study. Now is a great time to spend 50 hours a week studying the 1M by 1M curriculum, and you're going to learn a lot. You are going to be able to answer these self-assessment questions about your business, and that is going to help you, put one foot before the other. A first-time entrepreneur's journey is incredibly steep, but you have no choice but to learn as you are shepherding yourself through that journey. We are here to help you, but you're going to have to do the work. I always say that we are like a gym membership. You can subscribe to the gym, but you're going to have to do the workouts. Similarly, you can subscribe to 1M by 1M Basic or our full acceleration program, which is 1M by 1M Premium, but you have to do the work. And right now, you have time to do the work. So please do the work. Please do the studying. Please do the homework, and you will make a lot of progress. I'm absolutely sure about that. And I know that entrepreneurs in our program are making progress. So that's all for today. I look forward to seeing many of you in our upcoming roundtables as well as these sessions. We will see you back here next Tuesday, and maybe before that, we will see you at one of the free public roundtables on Thursday. I'm signing off for now. Be well, take care of yourselves. Do not take stupid risks of going out into a crowded space while we're in lockdown and exposing yourselves. I know it's very hard to keep the kids in control. They're going absolutely stir crazy, but well, that is it. That's one of the jobs we have, is to keep the young people in check. See you soon. Take care. Bye.